Hey, John, thank you so much for joining me. I'm really pumped up to talk with you today about SEO, engine optimization.
Thank you, Stephanie, for having me. It's a pleasure to be here on your channel.
Yeah, it's so exciting. Let's talk about SEO in terms of like generally what it is and why it is so important to salon owners and beauty professionals and just anyone who's watching and is like, what does that even mean? Like, how can I even show up on Google like John's website does?
Yeah, absolutely. Because clearly there's a number of strategies you can use. There's a number of platforms you can be on.
Yeah.
What I like with Google and why Google is so powerful for someone like a salon business is really like three reasons. One is, which is most important, is that it's evergreen, meaning like whenever you have, gotten yourself visible inside of search engines, you will most likely be visible there for many years to come, right?
Yeah.
Without you really doing much. So it's like it's evergreen. It helps you bring in new clients. People keep finding you without you doing much. The second part is if you compare like the Google platform, which is the dominant search engine and probably what we should focus this conversation on, they like roughly 50% of all the searches that are happening on Google are local searches. So it's like searches for things in the local area, like things like local businesses, like a salon, a spa, or restaurant, or these kind of local searches.
Yeah.
So Google, whose job is to match like the person who's looking for something with the best possible option out there, is putting a lot of like investment into this to make sure this is the best experience. And that's why when you go on Google and search, you get like a map and you see reviews of the businesses located just in your area. And like the content you see served to you is based on where you are searching, and it's the things that goes on around you. If you compare that to social media, what the social platform does is they want to like keep you for as long as possible on the platform. So as long as there's content there that engages people, it doesn't really matter to them so much if that's in the area or if that's somewhere in the world and so on. So you have like you're basically like competing in the whole world, whereas with Google you're much more local and you're reaching the people that actually can become clients.
Yeah.
So yeah, I think those would be the main two things. Evergreen, it's always on, and like when people find you on search, that also means that they are actually looking for what you offer, right? Otherwise they wouldn't find you, so they're also very likely to become clients.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
Absolutely.
yeah,
So it's all about like essentially showing up on Google, and I guess part of that is having a website, but there's other parts to it too, right? It's not just about having a website. It's not the only way that you can show up on Google.
no, so having a website is important. I recommend every business to have a website. But what I would say is like there's other things you can do, like lower hanging fruit. I hope that everyone who's watching this has a Google My Business profile, for
Yeah.
example. Again, like Google is really trying to help you there. Like they really want to make sure that if someone is searching for a balayage on their phone and they're close to your salon, they really want, like if you're offering that, Google is doing their best to try to figure out that you're doing that and show that, right? So like Google My Business is something they developed in order to help small local businesses to show up. So that's a tool that is available, which is like very easy to get going with if you're not already using that. And there's a number of things you can do on there. Like one of the most important factors I would say is like collecting reviews on that profile, so that
Yeah.
Google and the algorithms understands that people are going there and they like what you're giving them and so on. So that would be one. And then there's also like other platforms similar to that, that you should register your business on in order to also be able to be found there. But another factor in SEO is also that Google is trying to understand if you're a legitimate business and if you're like credible. And the way they do that is to look at if they can find information about you on other places. So
Right.
being kind of registered on other places helps you not only to be found there, but it also kind of increases the authority, or like how the credibility of your business in the eyes of Google and the search algorithms.
Oh, that's
So
cool. So what kinds of places can you register yourself?
So that would be like Apple Maps, for example, which is a popular search engine as well on the phone. You should have a Facebook profile. Is also something that can rank in Google and get you visible in Google. and you can have a like Yelp profile. There's a number of different places basically that you could get yourself listed on, but just starting there with Google My Business, Bing, a Yelp account is like a good foundation that you can start to build on.
Yeah, awesome. So, getting on Google My Business, getting reviews, registering yourself, and you said, it is important to have a website, but we don't want to put too much emphasis on the website. Do you find that like a lot of salons just go all in with a website when it's not really doing that much for them?
No, so I think website is important. It's more like it depends a little bit on who's, because it requires a bit of work. You need to put out content on your website. If you don't have content on your website, it's not going to be helpful. So again, I think the way to approach SEO is to also think about the search engine algorithm, and they don't know what you offer, right? Even if you know very well all the services you have, your staff will know all the services you have.
Yeah.
If there's no information about that out there, how would Google know, right? And they wouldn't know that they should show you when you're searching for these services, even if you offer them. So I think you should certainly have a website. It's just that it's a little bit more work, like just getting yourself registered, the things we talked first, that you can kind of crack out rather quickly and get at least some basics up, right?
Yeah.
And then you can work on fine tuning that and improving that and collecting but like the website is just a little bit more work if you're a independent professional and only have so many hours. If you're a bigger salon, you should absolutely make sure that you have a website and you have information out there about the services that you offer.
So you say that if you don't have any content that you're putting out, it's not worth it necessarily. Does that mean like if you're not like publishing blog posts and that kind of things, that your website won't help you get found on Google?
So I would still say it's worth it. Like your website kind of plays two roles. One is what we're talking about now, SEO, getting people to find you. And to achieve that, you need to have content on there that people can find. But it also serves the role of actually converting like people who found you on your social media or somewhere else and being sent to your website into actually a booking, right? So you can also, that's another role it plays. And for that, you don't need to have content, right? But then you need to rely on other places, ads, social media, whatever, right? To send the traffic to the website in order for them to book you.
Yeah.
Yeah.
So what are some of the things like with our website that we can do to make sure that it actually like helps us get found? I mean, I love talking about like blogs and stuff. Like I know you're all about blogs. Blogs have been really helpful for me. Is that like the only thing that you can do, or are there some other things that you can do as well?
No, so the process we work with and in like our training program, it's a 5-step process that we go through. Some do it themselves. Some work with an external party to help on some of the content creation. But essentially, where we start, where it comes to content, first is about the website setup. There's some technical elements there that we can go into, like page speed and so on, that you don't have heavy images and some of that. And that you have your address details, your phone number, and like that in the right places on your site and your contact us page, that all the information is there so that Google can understand that this business is the same as what he saw in this listing here,
right.
And so on. So all that information available.
So make sure you've
site.
got your address and your phone number and your email and all of that stuff, your business name, all in the same way that you would want it to be found on Google.
Yeah, exactly. So there's some of that, like in terms of setup. Then blogging is great. What we would normally do is also to look at the service menu, because the best type of searches is when people are looking for like your core services, right? So what you want to do is to kind of double click on that, and maybe rather than just showing a service menu on your website, you'll go a little bit deeper and add a bit more information about those big services that you want to offer.
Yeah.
So that you're really showing up for that. So that doesn't need to be a blog, then that can be more like your services section on your website, but you go a bit deeper on those different services. And then you can do blog. And the great thing with blog is you can put out a lot of content, and it doesn't, you can put out much, maybe you spend a bit more time on like your services section to like make sure that you have your services there. It's good quality information. But on the blog, you can just share if you just did a manicure, red manicure, or all of or whatever it might be the service, you can publish a post just like you would kind of post on your social media, but just make sure you also get it out on the blog, because search engines do not find an Instagram post, but they find the blog post. And when you do that like ongoingly, you start adding all these, what's in like SEO terms, if we get technical, is called like long-term keywords. To get a bit technical, which basically means like very specific services that if you just have a blog post out there, even if there's not much information, you might be the only one in your area talking about that particular specific service on ash brown hair, or whatever it might be. And then when people are searching for these very specific things, they start finding your blog and they get into your universe.
Yeah. So I want to go back for a second. I want to talk about blogs, but I want to go back for a second when you're talking about like the services that we're putting in. So beefing up those sections a little bit, instead of just saying like, I do hair extensions and I do balayage and I do vivids and all that kind of thing. What kind of extra information should we put in? And do we need to make sure that it's got like keywords in it so that like we're getting found for the right terms, or like, how do you know what to write?
Yeah. So it's not like, for those who have some experience of SEO and have worked in that, in the past, it was very much around like putting all the keywords in and so on to make sure that Google understands what this is about. It's a little bit less so now, and Google is getting much more sophisticated,
right?
To understand that, okay, when they're searching for this, they seem to be liking this site. They have a lot of artificial intelligence and things to do that. So it's less so about the keywords as it kind of used to be some time ago, but it's still important. Like, be clear. Like if you're talking about your balayage services, for example, make sure you have that as part of the headline on the page, that it's in the title of that page. I can get quite technical on the details there, but make sure you have that information basically on there. And it doesn't really need to be that much more complicated than that, but just making sure that it's clear. Yeah.
Yeah. Okay. So it's not like we need to like go and figure out all the little words that need to be included in like the descriptions of our services. It's enough to describe them generally, and kind of Google will be able to figure that out. It's smart enough to know.
Yeah. I mean, I would say, because it's the balance here of the time you invest, like keeping it fairly simple, like focus on like, okay, what's the big service term that I want to show up for? And then you describe how you're doing that in your unique way. And just by doing that, you will naturally get some words around that in terms of how you're doing that. And that will be, years ahead, many of the businesses in your area who are not doing this. So like, that's more than good enough, rather than like feeling that every time I do something, I need to spend an hour on just figuring out what to put, and then that kind of stops us from doing it, right?
Yeah. No, that's a really good. A really good point.
Just move ahead, and generally Google is getting smarter and smarter. So even if you don't have the exact word, they figured out. And like images are important, and you can try. There's a tool from Google where you can kind of upload a photo. So if you upload, a photo of, like I did a test with it was a bridal styling. Like as a human, you can see that this was a bride, but when you upload that into Google, they tell you all the keywords they're getting out of that image, right? And it was all about bride makeup, and like they understand everything also from images, and they use that information also for you to show up. So like images are helpful to get also like more of that type of visibility.
So when you say, do you mean like just including images on like our service descriptions for like that service that we're providing? Yeah.
So if you're running a certain service, I would certainly include an image of what does that look like, what does that end result look like, and because that's helpful. I mean, and we should never compromise on that. The experience for the viewer, right? You want to have a website that looks nice, and when people land and they read about your services, it's a nice experience. And delivering a nice experience is also having photos on there that shows what this is about, as well as you describing what this is about. So, and just by doing that and being kind of like using like common sense in terms of like just providing quality information of what it is that you're doing, that will separate you from most of the competition in your area, I would say, depending on like which city you live in.
Yeah. See, I think that you make a really good point, is that we think that we need to do, like, I'm a perfectionist and I'm the type of person where I feel like when I do something, it has to be perfect. But really, all you have to do is do it a little bit better than the person, down the street from you. You're competing with other local businesses, and local businesses typically are not super sophisticated in terms of like SEO and Google and websites and all of that. So even just having a little bit of a leg up, even just having like an imperfect like services page can make such a big difference, because Google knows where you guys are located, and you've got a limited number of businesses that are competing for results with you on Google.
Yeah, and most businesses would just like link them off to the appointment scheduler, and then they would need to dig in there to find out which services are being offered. Right? There's no content around them on the website, and then they won't get that search traffic that you could have gotten if you were to just have a bit of information about what you're doing also on your website.
Yeah, absolutely. Okay, so we talked about things that you can do with your website. We talked about having your, address and your phone number and your contact information, about having like a services page that's really, you well describe each of your services. You also talked about blogs. I love talking about blogs because it's content, and content is amazing. It's the cornerstone of so much marketing. Do you think it's realistic that salons and spas and beauty professionals can like continually put out like blogs and consistent content? Like, have you worked with clients who are able to do that? How do they find the time? How do they find like the ideas for what to write about? Like, can you give us maybe an example of how that would look like, of like putting out blogs on a regular basis?
Yeah, absolutely. So it doesn't need to be that complicated. I think we're making it oftentimes more complicated than it needs to be, especially when it comes to blog posts. Honestly, it doesn't need to be more complicated than posting on your Instagram. And depending on like which website builder you're using, many have like an app, and it's almost like that type of experience to put out also on your blog, rather than just putting it on somewhere where search engines won't find it. Just put it out on your blog as well. So in terms of like ideas for what to post, like typically what we would spend a little bit of time on here is kind of nailing down your strategy for like where do you want to show up and what would be the like important focus words for you. But generally, like what you want to show up for are for the service that you're offering. So when someone is searching for beard trim Las Vegas, or like when someone is searching for like the things that you're offering. So in terms of what you should post on your blog, just showcasing the work that you're doing inside of the salon, and just being like posting that with a description of like what you did to this client, with a picture, a bit of information on what was done. That's enough, just to kind of like a showcase of what you're doing, which makes it so it doesn't need to be like a blog article going really but it can be very like brief like that. And just by doing that, you're adding more content to your site, and you're getting more of these more specific type of content out there. And people are looking for those specific services, which makes it really interesting. Like in this day and age we're living with, like the Dr. Me trend, and we all kind of, your clients have so much knowledge today, right? In terms of what they want, and they picked up on something there, and then they're looking, does someone offer that specific service in my area? Like, you can actually use your service menu as a strategic advantage here, and including those services as a way to just reel in new clients, because it's something that is trending, it's a service that is trending, and you're doing it and you're adding it to your site, and you'll get people finding your business and maybe deciding to switch business because you're offering this thing that they want, right?
Yeah.
And your blog can really help you then to just get information out there, right? About those different services by simply sharing what you're doing inside of the business.
Yeah, I like that idea, because there's so much education that you can do. It's not just about simply getting found on Google. It's also about like having content to share with your general community. So, having an email list. I have an email list. I write them every single week. And when you don't know what to write to your email list, whip together a blog post explaining like one of your services. There you have like content to send to your email list, content that you're posting on your blog that will help you get found on Google. And then you can also like reuse it as an Instagram caption or something like that. Like, there's so many ways that you can reuse that content, and it doesn't just have to be for Google too.
No. So I think that the mindset shift potentially there is just like when you do blogging, because the common thing that salons would do is that we think of it as kind of our news wall, where we kind of just share news. Like we
Yeah.
share, okay, this member of staff joined. Now we had a party in the, like sharing like news that are happening. No one will search for that, right? No one will know. No one will search. Did the new member of staff join a salon in this town? Like no one would, right? So, but that's the type of content that I see a lot on blogs being put out there, which is cool, right? You can post that and share that with your list and with like people who care about that. Absolutely, right? But it's not going to help you bring in new people. Like what's going to help you bring in people is when there is a blog post that talks about balayage on ash brown hair or something like that, and that that will people search for, and then they find you. So you need to think about like the content that you're putting out there is to match what people will be looking for, right? Rather than what you want to get off your chest.
Yeah. How do you figure out what people would be looking for? Is it literally just like all the services that you do, like write a blog post about it, or are there some other ways to figure out like what do people actually want to hear from me?
Yeah. So there are different ways where we can get more or less advanced. So like number one is just like before we do anything else, talk about your services, like because people search for your services. So we don't even need to, and that's what you have to sell. So, there's no point like putting out the blog post about something that has nothing to do with what you're offering in the salon. Like it's great. You see more traffic on your website, but it doesn't help you grow your business because they came to your site for the wrong reason. So without really doing, I would say like without, to keep things simple, talk about your services. That's like the first step, and there's so much you can do just around that. If you want to get a little bit more sophisticated, like the next step is just, which is really helpful that I would use is the Google Auto Suggest. So if you just go to Google and you start typing in your like ideas on what you want to talk about.
Yeah.
If you type, then Google will automatically suggest the word that should come after that. So just by playing around a little bit in Google, you will see that like if I type in, I'm just gonna go. So I just type in balayage here, for example, because we used that example earlier, and I can see balayage blonde, balayage on straight hair, balayage versus highlights. Those are suggestions that are coming up, which are great topic suggestions, because Google wouldn't show that unless
people were searching for it.
Yeah, that's what they think you will be typing next, right?
Yeah.
And that's all based on like how people are searching. So like that's what I would do. If you're kind of want to get a little bit more advanced and like put out topics that are matching what more people are looking for, that's what I would do. There's more advanced things as well, but it's going to become a boring video.
I feel like that's a really good place to start.
Yeah.
That gives us like so much content, like weeks and months of content. Which brings me to another question. Like, how often should we be publishing blog posts?
Whatever fits you. So, that's it. And like what fits you. So what's your goals with your business? What are you trying to achieve here? Of course, generally the message is the more you put out, the more traffic you will see. Like, my business partner here, me, who you will have seen at the Salon Business as well, they put out quite a lot of content. So there's like several times per day, basically.
Oh, wow. On the blog?
On the blog, yeah.
Oh my goodness.
So you can go to like teachstockholm.se. So it's in Swedish, but it's very much the blog, so you can just see what that looks like. And it's typically several times per day that they put out, right? So, but they are doing like extraordinary well. There's like a queue of clients to her business. There's like over 30,000 visitors every month to the website, and it's like it's crazy. And she opened another salon because they were full, and then that got filled up as well. And it's just like it's just such a business driver, like one of these business assets. So you don't like, it depends on what your goal is and what it is that you want to achieve with this. We also have people in the program who are doing like less than that, like posting when it works from a time point of view, and generally like you don't need that much traffic if you just want to have like a flow of new clients finding you for your service that you want to do. So what I would say is just like, if you want to do this and you want to get going, like give your website like a certain mass of content from start, so that Google starts to understand like, okay, there's like things going on here, and they start indexing you and taking you into account. So it's good like when you get going to put out some content, but then the beauty is that this stays on for a very long time, and that's why I'm a big fan of this strategy. If we're able to be a little bit more strategic for the long run, because it's there. So even if you don't have time to post for 3 months or even 6 months, you will still have clients finding you because of the work you did like the year before.
Yes.
So,
it's like evergreen content, just like on YouTube. Same thing I find with YouTube. Like some of my most popular YouTube videos are like from years ago, and people are still finding me through them.
yeah.
So that's awesome. The last question I have for you, John, is about hiring someone. So if we decide that like, oh my gosh, I need to be on Google, like my business needs to show up, I want to get that like free traffic from Google, can we do it ourselves, or is it better to hire someone? And at what point can you make that decision of like, should I hire someone? Should I do it myself?
So it depends. And again, I work with people who do both. So you can certainly hire someone. Generally, they are quite expensive because they know the value of this.
Yeah.
And if you're good with SEO, like why would you do it on another person's website? Like then you would do it for yourself and build like whatever business. So like the good people, it's hard to find good people, and it's also hard to find people at the like reasonable rates, let's say. And
how much would it cost to hire someone?
Oh, I wouldn't be able to say that, because it can vary like really a lot depending on like who it is that you want to work with. So it's not like a general number there, I would say. But so it costs to have someone doing it, and also like when it comes to all type of content, you're the one who knows what you're doing the best, and this is not only because I always get a little bit like when we start thinking about SEO as purely a way to get people in. I think it's important that we also like we're putting content out there that we feel proud about, and it's about like things that we stand behind, and this is like how we do things around here, and it's part of the story, and because that's how we're building a brand as well, which is another business that is really important.
Yeah.
And then just like putting that out on someone that seems to have a low rate to just produce content for us talking about our services, it's a little bit, I don't know. You can absolutely do it, but if you want to have someone good, you just need to be prepared that it's gonna cost you a bit, and you want to kind of stay close to them to make sure that what you're getting is good quality.
Yeah. So I think what I'm getting from that is that you can totally do it yourself. I think it's just like a question of like how much maybe time that you can spend maybe creating content.
Yeah, and that's why I'm saying, because like building your website, you can actually use an agency for that, and as part of like setting up your website, they should know like where they should put your address, and like to get kind of the basic fundamentals in place, right?
Yeah.
That you can absolutely like use an external party for, and then you can use an external party to kind of add blog posts and to do that. But it's going to cost you a bit if you want to have someone good. And if we try to keep things simple, and that's why I'm saying like let's not spend a lot of time on trying to figure everything out, but just get going. Because then when you get going and you start to then get traffic, you will see also like, okay, how are people finding, which posts are the popular ones, and you will just learn and you will do a bit more of that. What like me, for example, is doing with Peach.com that's helping is also to make sure that your full team is contributing and putting out their portfolio work on the blog. And that's why they can post several times per day. It's not just one person.
Got it.
So like using your team when there's a bit of spare time to also make it part of their work, that they should actually be sharing what they're doing. Also like we'll get that kind of content wheel going.
Yeah, that's awesome. So thank you so much, John. This has been so eye-opening. If someone wants to work with you, I know you help with like so many different things in building and scaling a business. Do you also help with like the website side of things?
In terms of building the website?
Yeah,
or
website.
like,
Yeah, building
yeah,
websites or SEO or any. Do you have any services related to this?
so we don't offer that. So that's how we started, but we're not offering that anymore. So we're
Right.
only kind of or only, but we're because that's how we can make the bigger difference is helping salon owners on what should they actually be focusing on, what should they prioritize, and how should they think about that. And then if they want to outsource like the agent, like the website, or they want to outsource certain things, let's show you how to do that, how to brief them, and how to do it rightly. Like that's how we support the business owners today.
Okay.
So yeah, if you want to like work with me, so I have a lot of free content channels out there as
Mm-hmm.
well, as you'll find here on YouTube, the Salon Business YouTube channel. So that's a great way to start, where we share things similar to what we're talking about here.
Yeah.
This got quite technical today, I would say, so we're trying to make it a little bit lighter, but yeah, still helpful. And then there's the website, which is thesalonbusiness.com. And just stay tuned to that. So right now we cannot accept more people. So we open up when the time is right, basically. So I
Right.
think the best is just to subscribe to our public channels, and then if you feel that the energy you're seeing and what we're doing is a fit, then wait for whenever we say that we open up to more people to work with.
Awesome. That's exciting. Well, thank you
Yeah.
again so much for chatting, John. I am looking forward to speaking
Thank
with
you.
you again. Thanks so much for sharing your knowledge, and thanks everyone for watching. We'll see you again next week for another marketing video. Talk soon.
Bye.